The scoreboard said loss, but the tape heading into the coach's room tells a very different story. Roster decisions are changing weight, a battle for trust may have a new favorite, and 2 schematic clues could reshape this team when the games actually count. Bolt fam, get ready! Behind the scenes, every rep against the Rams left a message for Harbaugh and McDaniel, including the ones hidden away from the football. Today, we're opening up that board, separating excitement from evidence, and finding out who truly moved forward. If you want the unfiltered read, subscribe now and stay with me. It starts in the most crowded room in the building. The backfield picture looked settled before the coaching staff could even close the meeting room door. Omarion Hampton at number 1, with Keaton Mitchell and Kimani Vidal completing the 3-man group on the active roster. The real discussion seemed likely to begin behind them. Then Gregory Desrosiers took that predictable script, ran straight through it, and put up 118 yards on 9 carries against the Rams. That number demands attention, but the behind-the-scenes angle gets more interesting in context. Los Angeles needed to see some life from the running game. Against the 49ers, if you remove Trey Lance's long scramble, the Chargers averaged only 1.6 yards per carry. For Mike McDaniel's offense, built through the ground game and outside zone, that was more than one rough night. It raised a serious question about whether the system was actually making it onto the field. Then came 204 rushing yards against the Rams. That does not mean every concern disappeared on an August Thursday. It does mean the staff finally received usable evidence. Backs attacking space, acceleration showing up after the cut, and the design creating real opportunities. Desrosiers became the loudest face of that response. He had not produced much with his touches against the Texans and 49ers. Once the workload increased, however, he showed why the Chargers brought him in as an undrafted free agent. And now we reach the conversation the cameras never capture. How many running backs can the organization protect after the cut down to 53? Quentin Johnston had already made his argument against Houston with 2 catches for 68 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. His profile brings explosiveness and receiving value, 2 traits that matter in this system. Desrosiers answered with a more direct threat on the ground. Jared Patterson, meanwhile, brings 2 years of continuity inside the organization, something Jim Harbaugh tends to value. The top 3 are unlikely to change without an injury, and Vidal should still receive time to work through the details of the new scheme after stepping up when the roster was hit by injuries last season. The real fight appears to be for the practice squad, where there may be room for only 2 of Johnston, Desrosiers, and Patterson. Maybe waivers solve the equation by taking one of them away. If all 3 clear, Harbaugh will have to choose between versatile explosiveness, recent rushing production, and familiarity. It looks like a small call. For an offense that needs a dependable rushing attack to support Herbert, it is anything but small. Inside those hallways, the final spot becomes a debate about role, security, and ceiling. It is not only about who flashed last, it is about who can survive the entire schedule. Another piece of tape directly changed the offensive hierarchy. Jim Harbaugh did not offer a public verdict on DJ Uiagalelei. He only said the quarterback did some good things and that he was excited to watch the tape. Uiagalelei entered with fewer than 30 seconds left in the second quarter and found an offense that needed a pulse. On consecutive completions, he gained 21 and 20 yards, setting up a 49-yard field goal attempt that Cameron Dicker missed. Look at the hidden signal in that sequence. He did not have time to settle in, call safe plays, and slowly build confidence. He had to read the situation, speed up the operation, and attack immediately. Later, he placed the ball accurately to Evan Svoboda on the 2-point conversion that made the score 20-18. Then, with 3 minutes and 24 seconds remaining and the Chargers backed up at their own 1-yard line, he faced the kind of test that often separates clean statistics from internal trust. Uiagalelei drove the offense into Rams territory, finding Liam Clifford for 13 yards and Gary Jennings for 24. He showed composure, quick decisions, and a willingness to push the football downfield. The ending will be part of that meeting too. On 1st and 5 at the Rams' 40-yard line, Darrell Peterson came from behind, delivered the strip sack, and ended Los Angeles' chance to finish the comeback. An honest evaluation does not erase the fumble to protect the story. It also does not allow one play to destroy everything that happened before it. The staff will study the protection communication, the quarterback's internal clock, and how he commanded the offense all the way there. So what changed? Uiagalelei may have moved ahead in the competition to back up Justin Herbert, not because Harbaugh announced it, but because the quarterback showed the exact behaviors a backup must bring when called without warning: calm, mental speed, and the ability to keep the offense aggressive. The work behind closed doors will now be about comparing every decision with the alternatives, not simply counting completions. But McDaniel probably rewound one moment several times without needing a long meeting. Justin Herbert launched a 65-yard bomb. Quentin Johnston crossed the goal line, and for a few seconds it looked like the kind of highlight that simply owns the night. The decisive detail happened before the ball ever traveled. Johnston beat both defenders to his side with a beautifully built route up the seam, using his release to turn tight space into clean separation. But Bolt fam, here is where the story gets interesting. During camp, McDaniel said Johnston's drive phase, that blend of speed and athletic explosion immediately after the line of scrimmage, was going to make its mark this season. Against the Rams, that idea came alive. This was not a contested catch that depended on physical superiority at the catch point. It was not a busted coverage where nobody traveled with the receiver. It was a trained trait showing up inside the offensive design. That changes the read because Johnston does not have to become a different kind of player to grow. The plan can amplify the exact thing that makes him most dangerous. When he fires up the seam and forces the secondary to respect the deep ball, the effect does not end with that route. Safeties have to open their hips earlier. Linebackers get trapped between carrying the intermediate zone and helping behind them. Herbert gets throwing windows elsewhere on the field. One burst can rearrange the entire geometry of a defense. We had the coordinator's observation, the specific mechanism he highlighted, and now a 65-yard execution with the starting quarterback. That is an idea developing until it works at real speed. For Herbert, that development carries serious value. An offense built around the outside zone running game has to punish a defense when it brings bodies forward and tries to squeeze those runs. Johnston threatening vertically turns play action, motion, and condensed formations into traps. If the corner plays afraid of the burst, the shorter routes appear. If he presses too aggressively, he can lose the matchup in the first few steps. McDaniel gains choices, and Herbert gains answers before the snap. I understand every fan who wants to wait until September before buying into any leap. The Chargers have already given us too much potential without matching production. This play deserves excitement for the right reason. It connects the coach's words, the player's technique, and his job in the offense. Johnston did not appear downfield by accident. He executed the clue his own coordinator had been leaving. When a coach finds a repeatable way to release that kind of speed, every opponent has to carry the threat into its defensive meetings. Dalvin Tomlinson started driving the middle of the Rams line backward and showed why his presence may be worth far more than his snap count suggests. Of all the offseason additions, he was probably the veteran who had given the public the least material to study. Against the 49ers, he played only 6 snaps with the starters. In practice, he had not produced a collection of loud, attention-grabbing moments either. Against the Rams, the movement inside finally appeared. Tomlinson displaced blockers consistently, and on the Chargers' first defensive series, peeled away from a double team to make an excellent stop against the run. That is the kind of rep that changes an internal evaluation because it answers 2 questions at the same time. Can he still absorb power without losing his base? Can he free himself in time to finish the play? His job does not need to become some imaginary statistical competition with Jamari Caldwell or T.R. Tart. Even with fewer snaps than the 2 projected starters, Tomlinson can close the middle, eat blocks, and stop offenses from controlling the game between the tackles. In his 10th NFL season, his value comes from knowing exactly where the play wants to go and making that path miserable. There is another effect that never reaches the box score. If a nose tackle demands 2 blockers and can still escape that combination at the right moment, his teammates receive cleaner angles. Linebackers can attack without a guard reaching the second level untouched. The edges do not have to squeeze as hard to compensate for a vulnerable middle. The defense keeps its structure. For a team that wants to control games and avoid asking Herbert to win a shootout every single week, that is roster construction, not a decorative detail. So open the war room in the comments. Which signal against the Rams should carry the most weight inside those team decisions? The backfield depth, DJ's rise, Johnston's explosion, or Tomlinson's power in the middle? I do not want the most famous name. Give me the detail on the field that you believe will still matter when September gets tight. The Rams kept the preseason scoreboard, but the valuable information returned to the Chargers building. Desrosiers tightened a difficult decision. DJ Uiagalelei strengthened his film room case. Johnston turned McDaniel's clue into an explosive play, while Tomlinson brought power where this defense must hold. None of that delivers September early. It delivers better options, and good teams grow when coaches recognize signals before others. Bolt fam, I need your opinion on this one. In one word, what was the strongest message from this game? Drop your verdict, subscribe to Los Angeles Chargers News today, keep that energy charged, and come back for the next breakdown.